And now we're going to get it to this resistance. So we want to start with like, so what do we do, right? So we know this is all good for us. So how do we do it? So we know we need to be doing some resistance training. So resistance training really increases myokine production. And this slide is really busy. And I think the goal of this slide is to, you see weightlifting over there. And when we think about resistance training, I think we often think about weightlifting, but there are other resistance training ideas too, right? Rock climbing, boxing, rowing. And the best exercise you can do as we talk about these next few things is the exercise that you enjoy doing. So if you are trying to do something that you're not enjoying, it's unlikely that you're going to be consistent with it. And consistency is really the name of the game in exercise and physical activity. So we know we need to be doing some resistance training. We know we need to be doing some aerobic training, getting our heart rate up, right? And on the left-hand side there, you see people with MS, and this is a generalization, but people with MS tend to have significant lower VO2 max. So VO2 max is an indication of how well you use oxygen. It really tells us about our aerobic fitness. So some of us have these fancy watches. I have a little Apple Watch, and that tells me my VO2 max. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's certainly more accurate than me guessing. If you don't have a fancy watch, you can ask your doctor, right? And if you're into kind of numbers and things like that, great. But just know that it's kind of, yeah, it tells us our aerobic fitness. And people with MS in general have lower VO2 max, and it also gets lower with age. A recent journal article I read from Dr. Model explained that it isn't so much something inherent with the disease of MS that makes people have a lower aerobic fitness. It's really that people with MS tend to do less exercise and physical activity. He even cited a study that showed that 20% of adults with MS in the US, only 20% of adults in the US engage in recommended amounts of exercise and physical activity for health. So that means 80% are not doing the recommended daily amount. And so that's why we're here today really talking about how do we get, more physical activity and exercise into your life. Other things, people with MS tend to have a lower 6-minute walk test result. We tend to have impaired heart rate reserve. So heart rate reserve is really the difference between your maximum heart rate when you're working out at maximum level and your resting heart rate. And people with MS tend to have widespread pattern of gray matter atrophy. The research and what research really shows is that by doing physical activity, by doing aerobic training specifically, it really modifies the gray matter areas, especially involved in sensory motor control, visual processing, and cognitive functions, right? Which are all very significant for people living with MS. It also has neuroprotective role with reduced atrophy progression rate. So we need to be doing some resistance training. We need to be doing some aerobic training, getting our heart rate up. We also need to be doing some stretching. So stretching helps to release endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, which help to motivate us, fight off depression, and decrease anxiety. Dr. Helen Langevins has done some work around yoga rats. And so it's a yoga rats experiment is what it's called. And so basically they took a group of rats and they injected them with an inflammatory chemical, right? So they had inflammation in their rat bodies, right? Half of the group was given stretches. So half the group was given these yoga stretches where the rats held on and they pulled up their tail like they were doing downward dog. And half of the group was not given that. And what they found was the rats that were stretched had a high concentration of resolvins in the tissues after stretching, which turns off inflammation. The other thing they found that was really cool was that resolvins enter the blood and make clear inflammation anywhere in the body. So if you might be stretching your arms, but you're having an anti-inflammatory effect in the whole body. So we need to be doing some resistance training. We need to be doing some aerobic training, and we need to be doing some stretching.